Jaqui, lovely to have you on board. How are you?
I'm very, very well, Michael, but can I suggest you just go and buy a new toaster?
It doesn't make any difference. All toasters are crap now. There was seriously, they're all crap, Jaqui. I mean, they either break down or the release thing doesn't work, or you put it in for 2 minutes and it interprets as 22. There's just something wrong with toasters. And have you got a toaster?
Go and buy. Yeah, I do. I've got a one that I've had for years. It's a kind of, it's more expensive, but it's called a Dualit, and sturdy, industrial. Has a lever to lift up the toast rather than a button that never works. So it's brilliant.
Yes. Yeah, that would work. Yeah, well, you see, you're much more advanced than we are in Australia. See, you're a sort of first world country. Here, we just get the stuff that gets, out of the Chinese factory rejects that end up working in, I don't know, Smith and Brown or something like that, or Harvey Norman or whatever. I know, or the warehouse. Hey, just on that, Joe Biden's still at his press conference now. This is first. Isn't it incredible? But I've been opining this morning about how the Western or the American media, particularly the liberal media, has been protecting Joe Biden for the last 3 years. And we could have known all this 3 years ago, but they just decided now it's important. But it's his first press conference that he has done for over a year, with the press corps. So he's actually standing up after NATO. Yeah. Now he's answering their questions. And that's the first time he's actually stood in front of the White House press corps and answered questions without a script or without, the auto cue running. Yeah,
and it's turning into a train wreck. He's referred to Zelensky as Putin and Carmilla as Vice President Trump so far.
Oh, I make those mistakes all the time, to be fair. They look so different. They look the same. So it's clearly obvious that a black woman looks like just Donald Trump. For Pete's sake, Jaqui.
I think he's actually lost it. I actually think he's lost it.
Well, I don't. He actually no. I'll tell you what he said. He said, "I'm quoting to you directly. I'm determined. I'm running." He then said, "I think it's important that I allay fears." That's what he said. So there you go. Although he did say that any figures he cites will need to be checked because he's not quite sure if they're accurate, which I thought was honest but revealing. Yeah. There you go.
Yes.
Who do you think should be the Democrat candidate? Listen, I'm sure the media will get their way and they will undermine him sufficiently that the polls will just get them screaming. Who do you think Kamala Harris will be the obvious Democrat candidate?
Look, I think she's the obvious one. She's the easiest one, given the time frame that's in front of them. Had they dealt with this a year ago, I think that, I don't know all the potential candidates, but you would have had, I think, 2 or 3 other, potentials and a thorough time to work it through. But they've run out of time. She can't be worse than him. And they've just got to get on with it.
Yeah. They've got, the division in American politics, so let's just say it's past election, Trump's been elected. I guess the other question will be the effect upon the presidential contest upon the Senate, and upon the House of Representatives, the Congress. And if the Republicans sweep that, boy, the Democrats are going to kill themselves, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, and really, a pox on both their houses. Neither of them really are serving their country well. No, and that Trump and Biden are the two candidates. I think every New Zealander goes, oh my God, how did things get so bad? Do you, in a funny sort of way though, I think that about Australian politics. I look at Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, the Labour Party leader, and I look at Dutton, the Liberal leader, and I go, is that the best that Australia can do? Well, they've tried other options like intelligent people and, business people, and that kind of didn't go that well either. I think both with Dutton and Albanese, you kind of know what you're getting, and that's tends to be very, it's sort of, that's the nice thing about Australian pollies, really. They're not these remote characters trying not to be someone they're not. You kind of know where they stand on things. They're kind of pretty simple and direct, and you feel like you can relate to them, whether you like them or not, it's another matter. But I think you've got they kind of are who they are, and then you can make your call.
In your estimation, I mean, Anthony Albanese came in a wave. The Teals got rid of a lot of established Liberals as well. There was a view, I think, that when the Labour Party got elected, with Anthony Albanese obviously as the new Prime Minister, that there was sort of a wave of Liberal left optimism in Australia, and that the Conservatives have been thrown out, and gosh, we're going to create this nice new progressive Australia. Is that feeling still around? That's the first thing. And the second question I'd have is, has Albanese changed himself since he became Prime Minister? He came in with a bit of a reformist bent, but I'm reading an awful lot of stuff now where he's heading very quickly towards the centre. You tell me.
He's wearing better suits and he's had a bit of a makeover, so he's looking a bit sharper. Look, I think Albanese was really a compromise candidate for the Labor Party, and the movers and shakers put him up because he's easy to kind of manage. Would be my view on that. In terms of where the Labor Party is sitting now, I think the constituency is very suspect. They've said all these grand things. They came in that they were going to do these wonderful things, and they really haven't actually taken action. And I've actually just about finishing a piece about this. So I've dubbed it deflection politics. They talked a big game, came out and said they were going to do all the stuff, really haven't done anything, promised billions here and millions there, and are not progressing. So I think there's a big sense of disappointment, number one, and frustration across all sorts of things, electricity prices, cost of living, domestic violence, the things we constantly talk about, but there's no action. It's all talk. And the referendum was kind of the beginning of the end of that. And really they've never really recovered. And Albanese particularly has not recovered, because literally the day after the referendum, Labor has literally said nothing about the Makarrata Commission and Aboriginal, support. They've just went to ground, and they've basically gone to ground on everything, making these big announcements and no action.
Listen, the other thing, though, that when you look at Australian politics, I read, I think, a poll of the Sydney Morning Herald that it might have been the Australian, or might have been in one or either of them this week, in which they broke down the party supports for Labor and the Liberal National, the opposition, for each of the states. And the thing that struck me about that was, I think in New South Wales, or was it Victoria, there was still a very strong Labor majority, but in New South Wales it had switched to a small Liberal majority. But the disparity between the states in terms of Liberal or Labor, can you take me through the states and tell me how they usually vote, please? So if we start in West Australia, is that a Labor or a Liberal enclave?
It used to be Liberal National, because there's a lot of big miners and a lot of agriculture. So you've got a kind of a more conservative thing. The last election, one of the reasons Labor got in is because they managed to secure 2 or 3 seats there, which typically they wouldn't have won. So WA, typically more Liberal Conservative. Queensland, bit of a combo. Again, big mining state, big agriculture, so tends to be more conservative. National Party, the kind of farmer National Party, we'd call it here. Northern Territory is just a bit of an outlier. It's a territory, kind of, so they tend to be, they don't really have much kind of, coverage. New South Wales, Labour-ish, Labor Liberal, it's tough because you in the capital cities, particularly Sydney, Melbourne, you now have kind of green liberal inner city and more conservative outer suburbs. So the changing nature of the inner city versus suburbs has been a major shift in the last 10, 15 years, I guess. So New South Wales, Liberal Conservative, but we've had a Labor government and, consistently, so they kind of flip. Victoria, typically Labor, and certainly for the last 10, 15 years, God knows why, given that they've had Dan Andrews, who was just appalling. I think Victoria's got the highest state debt of any state in the country, and the economy's crap, and they're spending all this money on infrastructure that they don't have. So the major cities, it's more a inner city versus outer cities. And then in the major states, in Queensland, eastern states, Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, you then have the city-country divide, whereas country tends to be, farmers, more conservative, the Barnaby Joyces, the Bob Catters of this world, whereas the city, inverted commas, tends to be, kind of more working class and liberal. It's a bit of a mixture, really, when you talk about it like that.